Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Thriving Adoptees podcast. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Quinn Wolverton. Looking forward to our conversation, Quinn.
Yes,
Earlier
absolutely. Me too.
today. Listeners, Quinn's just had, he's the first person that I've seen since I saw my somatic experience at Woman this morning and had some big stuff come up. So we're a little bit late starting this because Quinn's had to listen to me for 30 minutes. But now we're going to talk about him, right? So Quinn got in touch with me about a film that he's making. I'm getting goosebumps now. It's so weird, isn't it? And yeah, obviously he's an doctor and he's making this film and he showed me contacted me through LinkedIn and showed me this trailer. And I think it's really powerful. So I said to him, look, I want to do what I can to help you get the support that you need to make this trailer happen. But so let's do the first thing that we can do on that. Um, let's have you on the podcast and talk about your healing journey. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for letting me share my story and getting the message out.
Yeah, cool. So healing.
Yes.
Uh, does this word resonate with you? To what
Yes, and thinking about it, I've been thinking about healing and how I healed from my adoption stuff, and I'm still healing from it. And I don't know if I'll ever be fully healed, but I hope that I can let some of this go at some point. But for me, healing, it it means acceptance. It means to to be okay with what has happened and and understand whether good or bad that it all happened for a reason and we we all go through healing in different ways, different times, and
Yeah.
that's the beautiful thing about healing.
I've heard asked that question obviously so many times in throughout 2024. And there's the still healing bit
Mhm.
is the one that uh, it's a very common thing, but it's just like it's a process. I don't know what. Um, and I'm gonna I try not to put too much of my own stuff in, right?
Sure.
But today I just want to put my take on that, right? So something that happened for me last year is that I saw healing on two levels. And the first level is the psychological level. I mean,
Mhm.
most people, when we think about healing, we think about psychological. And and on that, I agree. We will be healing the psychology for the rest of our lives.
Mhm.
I totally agree. And at another level, the the essence of us, I believe, just my opinion and my experience, and yeah, my lived experience, I think, is there's part of us that was never wounded.
Mm.
The essence of us was never wounded. Um, and that I talk about this being so the trauma hides our essence, it doesn't harm our essence. So yes, still healing psychologically every day. Going to the somatic experiencing lady that I've seen, talking to Pamela Karanova, doing the grief process, looking at that stuff, going further, uncovering the pre-verbal stuff. Um, so I've resisted the temptation to do that for quite a while, but I just thought I'd do it today. So I I hope you don't feel that I'm tramping on you.
No,
Tramping.
not at all. Not at all. Not at all.
Cool, cool. Because I sometimes can do it overdo my stuff.
No, you're
Um,
fine.
uh, what what's what healing moments for you come to mind?
Yeah. Well, I've recently figured this out for me. And I think that kind of coming full circle on why I reached out and why I wanted to talk to you was my films, my art. For me, that is my way of healing, but I never realized it. And especially once I made the piece that you saw, and I showed that in a room full of strangers I didn't know, and that's a very personal piece for me. And people were crying, and the way that they were reacting to it, I felt as if a part of me let some of that go. It wasn't mine anymore. It was everybody in that room's, if that makes any sense. But in my mind, it's for me making my films and making this film specifically that I'm trying to make. I think that's a huge part of me healing.
So uh, people, the metaphor that came to mind is a problem shared is a problem halved, isn't it? Something like that.
Something like
And
that.
it was that was the thing that popped into my head in terms of like you're sharing the grief, um, you're being vulnerable, right?
Hmm. Yep.
You're bringing the grief out of the darkness into the light. You're sharing it, and the there's some metaphor I can't remember exactly which. Like if we go into a cupboard, right, or a yeah, we open a cupboard door. It's dark in the cupboard because the light doesn't get into the cupboard, but the the light from the room rushes into the cupboard.
Hmm.
The darkness of the cupboard
Right.
doesn't make the room dark,
Right. Exactly.
even if it's a huge cupboard, right?
Right. Right.
If even if the cupboard's taking up 90% of the space, right?
Hmm.
It's not
Hmm.
just to do with this. I don't know why I'm playing. I don't know. I'm riffing on this right now. I don't know why I'm going on so much about this. But
It's
even
okay.
if it's because I'm thinking a small cupboard, small bit of darkness. Like,
Yeah.
is it to do with the cubic meters? Yeah. I'm disappearing at my own backside here, right? But however big the cupboard is, the darkness doesn't rush out and make the room dark. The power of the light kind of comes in,
Hmm.
um,
Absolutely.
and that does that just how does that stack for you? How does that feel to you? How does that
I,
match
I, I, f-
your experience in the room?
I feel that it does make sense. I think for me in my journey of healing, especially just making my peace, I had never really looked at it from like an outside point of view. Like looking down upon my myself. And you have to do that while writing a script. You kind of have to take yourself out. Even though it's my story, I kind of take myself out of it and write this. And so in that way, I feel as dark as the stuff is, and maybe it's not the happiest, once you shed light onto it, you see the happiness. And that's what I got out of my little piece that you watched. Was
Yeah,
I saw what my parents did and I understood I just understood everything a lot more clear, which I had never done before.
yeah. So when you said making my peace,
Yes.
I thought peace as in Peace, right?
Sure.
And then I was going to ask you about that, but then you said my little piece, and you mean your piece of film, right? Um, so it's both, I guess, is it? I don't know.
Yes, it is both, and I'm still working on my piece, my inner piece, and I still have to let some more stuff go, but it is slowly being chipped away of coming to terms with everything and understanding it
Yeah.
and healing myself.
So there's two parts there to the film piece, or I don't know,
Mhm.
maybe more than just two. I was thinking about you've talked about the sharing of it, and you've talked about the making of it,
Mhm.
and I guess the making of it is the actual film making itself, and but then you're also talking about going upstream of that to the writing of the script, and
Right.
that's when you're taking yourself out of the script because you're writing a script from a third person perspective rather than a
Uh,
first person perspective. Is that right?
yes and no.
Fine. Yes, no. Okay.
You have to, you do have to take yourself out of it. Now, saying that doesn't mean that you're not wanting to be truthful to yourself, but you have to, you have to tell the film in a certain way. You can't, filmmaking, as much as you could make it about real life, that's more of a documentary. A film, there's beats that you have to hit. You kind of have to maybe a little bit more dramatic or cut out certain things in like your life. But in that writing process, you're always thinking about everything that you've been through and what to add in and what to subtract. So that writing process was just part of it because I knew, well, I'm not playing the character. I'm having somebody else play me.
Yeah. I mean that was something that hit me as I was watching the video, right? You sent me the connection
Yeah.
request on
Yep.
LinkedIn and the message on LinkedIn. And I looked at that
Yep.
and I thought, I don't think I don't think that's Scott. You know, for some reason I don't think that's Scott. Um, what's coming for me is that uh, I've I've only ever looked at one script in detail, and I was in a way I was proofreading it for a guy, and it was about an adopted guy. I think it was a long time ago. The challenge is that you've got so much of what we're talking about here is internal stuff,
Right.
and you can't go in somebody's head. Well, you can if you've got. There's that film, isn't there? There's the film for there's the kids um, animation Disney. The second one's just come out, and it looks
Oh, Inside Out. Inside
inside
Out.
out. Yeah, yeah. So that goes inside somebody's head, but that's in animation, right? So
Right, right,
you
right.
know, we're not going to do that in a what's the opposite? What do they call real movies rather than non-animated? What do they call them? Action.
Uh, just movies. I mean,
Yeah,
there's
live
animated
action.
movies. Yeah,
But
live action.
live action. We're not going to cut open somebody's heart like it's AR. We're trying to figure out what's going on,
Yeah. Right.
and that's the challenge. And you know, reading that when I read this script that I was proofreading for somebody, it was all the it was the director's instructions, the screenwriter I think it's called, isn't it? The screenwriter's instructions that the director is then going to have to bring out of the
Hmm.
actor. So
Hmm.
I'm guessing that you were the screenwriter and the director for the guy that was playing the adoptee, yeah?
Yes, I was the screenwriter. I was the cinematographer. I was the director.
Were you the sandwich guy as well?
I mean, basically, it was a very small crew. It was just to see what I could do with a story like that, my story. And yeah, so like I didn't know if I was even going to do anything more than what you saw, but um, the reaction that I've gotten from it was so overwhelming, and I knew for myself, let alone for anybody else, but for myself, I knew that I wanted to tell my whole story in hopes to help other people.
Yeah. So what did taking yourself out of what did taking yourself out of the writing or out of the cinematography or out of the film what taking yourself out what did that do for you? How did that impact you? How was that?
Right. Yeah. So it, it was very emotional. Not so much the writing part was emotional for me. Um especially when the character reads the letter. That was very emotional because that was more or less a direct. I had taken bits and pieces from my birth mother's letters and I put them in there. So that was very emotional. But the filming aspect wasn't that emotional for me. That was just another day on the job for me. Like I was just kind of just locked in, ready to work. But then when it came time to edit the film, that's when I kind of all was a lot of emotion came up while editing it. Um,
Because
it,
you're reliving it
I'm
and you're on
reliving
your
it.
own, I
I'm
guess.
reliving it, but I'm also seeing it from an outside point of view. Even though it's my story and I went through it, I'm seeing it from a different perspective instead of being the one that is in it. Because sometimes it's hard to, even though that you're living this event and whatever as traumatic as it may be, seeing it from another point of view, at least for me, was just as hard as when I was in that moment. So it was eye-opening. It was it was just hard. It was very hard
It's heart opening.
to yeah, it was hard to watch myself, quote unquote, myself go through that, especially hearing that letter being read. And obviously the music helps and everything convey
Yeah,
that stuff. And obviously I was trying to go for that emotion, but it is still without any of that, it's still very emotional to me. So
yeah. What did that give you?
I think it gave me a sense of closure in a way. Closure in the sense of uh, I understood that as hard as it was for me, it was also hard for my parents. It wasn't as simple as I thought it was, because I only saw it from my point of view. And I obviously talked to my parents about it before I made the film, and I wanted to get their side of it, and I put in as much as I could in like the short amount of time because it wasn't the full length version. Um, but yeah, I saw it from their point of view too, and it made me understand them more as well.
And did it give you a different perspective on your birth mother as well?
Yeah. Yes, yes. I think for me, the short version, uh, I think I had mentioned to you that I hadn't even gone back and read all of the letters that she had given me. I only read a handful of them at the point in time when I made the short film. And those are the pieces that I kind of just put into the film. But going back and doing the feature film version, I went back and read all those and I felt so connected to her. I still feel connected to her, but I feel so connected to her and I understand why she did it and how hard it was for her. I mean, it was not easy in the slightest sense and she didn't want to give me up and she was I talked to her not too long ago about this and she was like if I could have I would have kept you, but I knew at that point in time I wasn't okay, but I found you the perfect family, and that's all that I care about.
Wow.
So it's a lot, and just doing all this research and making it and writing it, it's been very eye-opening to me, And I feel like that's why I say that it's been also very healing for me.
Yeah. Can you can you share a little bit about the connection thing? Because when we spoke the other week, that
Mhm.
was kind of what I got. Some very similar themes. Um, Me reading a letter from a birth mother to the social worker, you're reading a more personal letter. It's from her to you, and there's plenty of them. Can you explain what the connection or the because and I realize it's tricky because it's a feeling.
Mhm.
Um, but can you paint a picture of the connection or describe it? Given I'm letting you off the hook by saying it's hard to put into words because I appreciate it. So you can go at it whichever any way you want.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think what's the best way to describe it. I don't know. I mean, as you know, reading something
So it's
from
in
what
a handwriting, yeah? Is it in a
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
handwriting?
it's
Yeah.
it's in handwriting and reading something that you are connected to biologically, and whether and at this point in time in my life, I'd never met her. I didn't even know that she existed. I didn't know that she wanted anything to do with me. Um, reading the handful of the letters the first time, I felt connected. I felt seen. I felt like I had somebody, but at the same time, I felt abandoned. I felt like I didn't know where to turn to. Um, for the first time, I saw her handwriting. I saw a piece of her, and I didn't know if I would ever see her. I didn't know if I'd ever even know her besides what was in those letters. And that was tough. That was tough in the beginning for me. I mean, it still is tough for me. Not saying it isn't, but in the beginning, it was very shocking. It was very like the brakes all of a sudden came on and everybody flew to the front of the bus almost, like
Yeah. One of the things that's been coming to my mind recently is that I think I heard somewhere the ego defined as the separate self. Um, and I was thinking about our feeling, not just using mine, but not just yours and mine, but our feeling as of adoption, of separation, and how that's if ego is separate, the separate self, and everybody's got one, ours is turbocharged.
mm, yeah.
And why I'm bringing that up is because you use the word connection,
Hmm.
and I'm seeing connection as the ending of separation.
Yeah.
So we go from a me to a we.
Hmm. Yeah. And it's not just we at least in my sense, it's not just we and my birth mother, but it's we and my adopted parents, my adopted brother. We all went through this together in some way. Friends, family, it doesn't matter. I mean, if anybody knows your story and you're open with them, there's a connection with, at least in my personal what happened, there was a connection where everybody kind of came together and was there.
Yeah. I, and I would say it can go even further than that
Hmm.
to connection Like we we had jumped on the Zoom and dived straight in. You talked a little bit about logistics of moving and buying a house and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And I'm still slightly shell shocked from this meeting this morning. But I said we
Sure.
can go like there's something that's kind of magical about connection between adoptees. We can pretty much go straight into the deep.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a connection that we all have that, I mean, obviously, I'm sure people could figure it out, but there's a connection between all of us adoptees that bring us all together and that we all have like an understanding of one another.
Yeah, and it's bigger than that as well. Like
Hmm.
sharing, like my big learning around this area started whenever it was 22, 2009, 15 years ago, maybe. We I sat around a table with 8 people and we shared our stories, you know. Um, and not everybody is gonna that's listening to this podcast is gonna make a film. Some people might make a film. Some people might write the story. Some people might have already written the story, and it it this adoption, this grief thing that I did with Pamela Karanova towards the end of the seven sessions. I wrote a letter to my birth mom. So, and there was a bit of story in there, right? So it's not about the film, the
Hmm.
book, the letter. It's it's about the sharing, the profound thing that you started with the sharing and people crying in the room, sharing it with strangers. And then then we went upstream to the making of it. But it seems like the whole thing is all the little processes involved, all the steps along the way of being about healing. Um, the most profound ones, it's is in the sharing, um, and then you also talked about the editing process, because you're, yeah. Um, have you got a feel why that was bigger? That was the most. Have you got a feeling for why that might have been the biggest bit?
I think because I was so honest and vulnerable, I didn't hide anything. I just told my truth in the 9.5 minutes. And I think I think everybody resonates with the truth, no matter what it's about. And when the truth is involved, I think people are more
Yeah,
drawn to it and more open and more
it-
open to receiving the feeling.
yeah.
So that's just my opinion. I mean, I've
It's
made
the
good.
truth, and it's the voice. A strange thing just popped into my head, as they sometimes do. So I've been watching this series about the Tour de France on Netflix, and it it's dubbed, right? So if they're interviewing an English rider or American rider or an Australian rider, obviously that rider's speaking in English. If they But they interview this French guy who is a wild, is an old campaigner, he's an ex-cyclist himself. His whole heart is on his sleeve. Um, he's an ex-rider who wants the best for his French team on French soil, and it's the whole thing, right? And then they've got this guy doing the voiceover who syncs. The lip sync is pretty. The lip sync is pretty tight. but there's there's none of the depth. There's none of the soul. There's none of the tone. There's none of the passion. There's it's like going to Universal Studios and the fascia for the saloon. There's the Western town. It's got the saloon, it's got the police station, it's got the jail, it's got the undertakers, and they're all just fascias, aren't they?
Right.
You look around the
Right.
back of them, and it's just
Yep.
that's what it's like. And to me, that's the polar opposite of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
The depth of the truth, um, and I I guess I'm guessing that it's actually in the editing is the focus on it, right? The focus on it.
I
You're
mean
going to be
the
more focused on editing when we're editing, we're kind of more focused. Like if I'm write a letter, I just get it out, boom, okay.
right.
But then when I'm reading it back, I'm I'm looking for the typos. I'm looking for the apostrophes, whatever. And I'm thinking, well, maybe that's what happened for Quinn and his film is that focus. Um,
I, I I think a couple things happened. Yes, super focused when editing. A lot of the focus and emotion comes out in the editing. But that being said, a lot has to do with the actors and the day that you're shooting. But I, I was just thinking like about your Tour de France thing and the facade. You can write the best script. You could write that guy's whole monologue, but if you don't have the right person behind the voice or the right person um narrating it or whatever. What I'm trying to say is that if I wasn't directing the piece, like the short film, it wouldn't have been the same thing. It might have not have had the same connection. But since I knew exactly how it should have played out and it was my story and it had that soul to it. It had that soul. So and that's where it started. And then the editing process made things a lot easier because it already had that built in. I just had to go in and tweak little things and put some music over it and and
yeah,
off it went. So that's where it really all starts is with your writing, soul into the writing. And if you're not adopted or if you're not, I can't write a film about being an electrical engineer. I mean, I could, but nothing would be correct. And same with directing. If you're making a film about adoption, but you're not adopted, well, that emotion's not going to come through.
yeah,
That that feeling. I mean, as good as directors you can be, that you never went through that. Now, the editing process, you don't have to be technically adopted to make something powerful, but it definitely helps.
yeah.
Definitely helps.
So how have your emotions shifted?
Ooh.
Bef
Um,
kind of bef we've gone kind of depth into the process. If we now
mhm.
kind of step back and we look at you've there's a a before, a during, and an after, right? So far, we've been looking at the during.
Okay.
How have the emotions? How does the before and after picture
Yeah.
look for
Well,
you?
before I was very angry and I had a lot of resentment towards my parents. Not my birth mother, not my birth mother. But towards my parents in the way that um things had played out with giving me these letters and things of that nature. But now after, like I was saying, I see it from their point of view and I see what they were trying to do and
What did they do then? What was it that you were did they? So I should remember this, but
no,
did
it's
they
okay.
keep the letters What
Yeah, so
what
so
happened?
uh, um I'll just give a little backstory here. So I was adopted at 2 months old from the US Virgin Islands. Um and uh, my whole life, growing up, nope, I always knew that I was adopted. Never, that wasn't a
Yeah.
question. Turned 18, they come into my room and say, "We have this envelope. It's full of letters from your birth mother. Read them if you like, or don't." And at that time for me, I was just graduated high school. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I felt so lost and confused. And then on top of that, getting all this, I just was a wreck. I just fell apart. So I was very angry for them, not even telling me that this person was even still alive or was still talking to them. I mean, they would write letters to each other my whole life until I was 18. Um, at least once, like my birth mother would write one and they would write one at least once a year, if not twice a year. And I didn't know any of this. And I had things in my room. I still have stuff here in this house that they said that was from my grandparents, but was really from my birth mother and birth grandparents. Um, so all that stuff, I was just like, why hide this? Why lie? Why not just tell me the truth? So I was very angry, and doing this film, I feel like I've kind of I've kind of seen the light at the end of the tunnel, or I've seen they why they did it the way that they did it, and I don't blame them anymore for doing it that way. And I realize how hard it was for them to even do any of it and all of it. And it's still hard for them. I'm making a film about not just my journey, but their journey as well. I showed them the film when I got done with it. I didn't even tell them that I was making it. I just came over. I said, I have something to show you guys. And I mean, they responded to it very well, but they were very emotional about it, because it's not just me who it affected. It affected all of us. It affected all of us. So before, very angry, just to come back full circle to your
Yeah.
question, very angry and not understanding and upset. And now I understand. I think I still hold some resentment. Um, I'm not angry or upset, but I think I still hold some resentment. But I feel as if my way of healing is making these films, and I'm starting to let go of some of that resentment and some of these feelings that I've been having since I've kind of found all of this out, and it's been over, 10 years or whatever it's been. And maybe I'll never get rid of it. Maybe that'll be something I'll always carry with me, but this is my healing process. This is my way of confronting it.
Have you heard much about like left brain, right brain difference and stuff like that?
I haven't looked too much into it. No,
Yeah.
no.
Because I don't know, have you seen that there's some adoptee coloring books and stuff out there?
Oh, no, I did not know
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
No.
For adults, right?
Okay.
People, it's as they say, it's a thing. My my wife, my wife was she donated a kidney, and so she was going to be not going out for a lot. She was when she was recovering, and one of the friends bought her a coloring book for adults, and it's just a black and white book, and you have some different colors
Sure.
and they've got some stuff for there's equivalent adoptee ones, and it's quite yeah. So some of them got lettering on them, and it says "Thanks for the trauma," and you color the color. You know, they got little circles and bits to color in, uh, and the right brain stuff is all the traumas in the left brain.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Well, they spoken the language around the trauma as well. Actually, I think I might have this wrong. The language and what the meaning maker, right? That I think that's and what's wrong, the inner critic. That's definitely in the left brain, but right brain is associated with the creative pursuits and putting your stuff out into the world, like making the film and
Hmm.
doing a coloring book or creating the coloring book in the first place. You know, these are
Right,
all
right.
or doing or dancing. Do you know what I mean? It's all
Yeah,
right brain stuff. There isn't a reason for dancing. It's just people do it for the do the hell of it. So yeah, the creative, but you're engaging a different part of your brain, and that's what um, you're you're turning your attention away from the left brain where a lot of the trauma is into the right brain where that's more open. It's the space for stuff to come out. Space for stuff to like what I'm doing with the somatic experience
hmm
is similar to what you're doing with the filmmaking because it's an action. It it's not just it's not just talking. It's
yeah. It's doing something. Yeah.
it's doing something. It's a whole body thing. Um, so uh, the the end of the end of blame, a drop off in anger, a dropping of anger, and
Hmm.
perhaps some kind of residual resentment.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Uh, I hope I can let more of that go.
Yeah, letting it go. Yeah, letting it go.
Um,
Letting it go. What does that mean to you? Because yeah,
I think letting it go just means like just being okay with how things happened. I had a
rather than holding on to it.
right. I'll just say this
Yeah,
on
go for
my
it.
point of view. I had somebody pass away, and I held on to resentment that I didn't answer the phone one night. And if I would have picked up, would they still be here? But I can't hold on to that anymore, and I've let that go. Um, but so through my filmmaking and through my looking back at everything and seeing it from a different perspective, I hope to let all of that go for the most part. Is just say, you know what, it's okay. It happened. Yeah, I'm happy.
Yeah,
Everything worked out in the end. Yeah, it's something like that. That's
yeah.
what
That's
letting go of resentment means. So,
um. So I did this. I did a solo podcast the other day on the back of a post I did on Facebook. Right. So I put this post out on Facebook last year, and then it came up on memories, and I shared it again. And it said, um, none of us are born believing that we're not good enough.
mm,
It's a belief that we pick up along the way. What if we could let it go?
ooh, yeah.
Mixed reaction to that. The the ones that challenged it was about as if well, reasons why, right? Reasons for holding on for stuff. Reasons, and I didn't make it. Uh, there's two bits. I'm saying, what if we could let it go? So there's hope, right? What if?
Right.
And just what if, what if we could let that go? Um, and on the flip of that, I am categorically not saying that we're holding on to stuff on purpose.
Yeah. No,
We
I
would
don't.
not, we would not, we are not choosing, we're not choosing we're not choosing to hold on to stuff.
No, not on purpose, especially um yeah, we're not I don't believe that anyway. Yeah, I don't think that we
Yeah, no.
because that's a lot of baggage then that we got to carry around with us. Why would we
Yeah,
all want
we
that?
wouldn't, yeah.
Right.
But
So,
we're not choosing, right?
right.
That's the whole thing. It's some hidden conditioning with insiders. That kind of brings me up to the next question I have for you. Um,
Sure.
was you talked about anger and about about these letters being um, about the truth about the letter, the truth the letters being kept from you. You talked about the anger. Was was this was this um, like did it feel like does it feel like now like it was an explosion of pent up stuff? Was it like a like a dam bursting or like what do they call it? Like an oil rig, when they finally strike
Yeah.
oil, boom, it comes out,
Right,
and
right,
then
right.
they have to try and get the tap the well, don't they? Put the lid on the well before they can get the pipeline to it. And
Yeah, I don't that's a good question. I don't know if it was built up because I'm thinking back to myself at that point. I don't think it was built up. I think for me, I was just angry at how everything played out. I was just like, I didn't understand it. My parents have always been very open, and they still are very open people. But with this one thing, they hit it, and I just didn't understand it. So I blew up in the sense that, like, so you guys are just like lying to me now. Like, this isn't, once again, it never had anything to do with my birth mother. I don't blame her for anything. And it wasn't, I didn't have any aggression towards her. But I was angry at the fact that they said that they weren't lying, that they just didn't tell me. But to me, that's
yeah,
kind
lying
of the
by
same
omission.
thing.
Lying, I
Yeah,
think they call it in the legal thing. They call lying by omission.
right. So, that's why I was so angry. I didn't understand it. I just felt betrayed. I was like, what do you mean that you have all of this? What do you mean that you've been talking to her? What is going on? Like, what is happening right now?
Yeah,
Like, you almost you feel like your whole world just got flipped upside down or is like spinning and like you just are like trying to figure it out.
yeah.
And I'm still trying to figure out everything and so I just
It's an interesting one, really, because we're trying to figure out our emotions, right? On one hand, you've got the anger thing, and me too, right? Why do you think I'm asking all these questions?
no, for sure.
Uh,
Yeah.
um, you got the anger, you've got the emotional stuff, and we've got the lieutenant or sorry, you would call them lieutenant, we call them lieutenant logic, and um, I can't think of a army rank that begins with yeah, field marshal feeling. There you are, field marshal
Okay.
feeling, and lieutenant or lieutenant logic. Um, I'm wondering if you hadn't had the reaction that you did, would you have made the film?
Mm. I don't think so. I do not think so. I think I think a part of me may be better off, maybe like in a better space. All of this has weighed heavily on me, and it still weighs heavily on me.
Yeah,
Uh,
but you're
but
still a young guy, right? Like, I,
yeah, yeah, I'm
I
31. I'll
haven't,
be
yeah, I haven't interviewed that many young adoptees. We tend to be old farts like me, right? And even older, you know. But uh, and but we come out of the fog when we come out of the fog. It happens when it happens when it happens. We can't kind of make it happen. And for me, it was a teddy bear at 40. For you, it was a letter at 18.
18. Yeah, yeah. And yeah, we're all on a different path, and
We're on
and
different paths.
and
And yet, yeah, it's a different path, but the emotions are
oh, it's all the
remarkably
same. Yeah,
they're
we
remarkably similar.
we all share,
Um,
more or less the same
yeah.
feelings.
Yeah, but I interviewed a therapist yesterday who's not an adoptee but has worked with adoptees, and she was talking about the gender differences with this, right? So
Oh, okay.
as guys, apparently, we've got two acceptable uh, acceptable emotional states. I think she called it, yeah, angry and horny. You know,
Yeah,
um, so we only talk obviously about anger on this show. Uh, if we're talking with guys. Um, so for me, there's a stunning depth to all this for for you.
yeah,
Um, but more importantly, you see that, right? My opinion on
yeah.
this, it's not actually that. It's your take on it, and your I I was after I finished talking about this, um, and talking to Corey, who I did the podcast recording with yesterday. I was talking about the distilling healing down, right? What is healing?
Hmm.
Um, and we have some very long conversations on this podcast about that. Maybe we should have some shorter ones. The But shift in perspective,
Mm.
a huge shift in perspective with an emotionally charged shift in perspective, not just a shift in perspective um, like a shift in perspective, like a new way of seeing things. So, a trivial example, right? Oh, I now know a quicker way to drive to work, right? So,
Mm.
or I don't know something a profound shift in perspective with a lot of emotional charge around it, and a
Mm.
shift from less from anger to less anger or no anger or and like some people would say resentment is a small version of anger. I what I think of frustration is this is something I learned last week. I think of frustration as quite small compared to anger, but other people think of it a lot closer. So if it was out of 10, I would say anger's 10. I would put frustration at maybe a 3, right? So that's a lot. I don't want too much of that. But other people say, well, it's bigger than that, Simon, actually. This is barely concealed anger.
Mm.
Your frustration actually is pretty big. It's more like a 8 compared to an anger of a 10. So different, I think we all got different takes on this. But healing is seems be to me is profound shifts in perspective with an emotional charge and a breaking down to break through. So it doesn't start off well.
No, no, not at
it,
all.
it doesn't
Never
start
does.
off well. Uh,
Mm.
hopefully it ends a little bit, to use your word, to go to the peace or peace thing. It's a shift from uh, anger, um, anger to peace, um, or lower levels of anger. What do you make of that?
I mean, well, which part? Are we talking about the anger side of things or the healing side
Well,
of things?
whichever you pick which is you think is the most important part of that.
I mean, to me, healing is the most important part because healing is something that is the only way that we can all, I want to use the right word here. I'm blanking.
So,
But
how would you describe? I've said healing is
yeah.
a profound shift in perspective with an emotional charge. It's kind of a sentence on it.
But
So
I would agree with that almost 100%. I think healing is healing is an understanding from it's tricky. This is a very tricky thing because
it is, yeah,
everybody's different, you know.
indeed, indeed,
For
totally,
for me, I'll just speak for myself.
yeah.
Healing
That's all we can
is
do.
a feeling of understanding for me.
A feeling of understanding.
So I understand why, how, what the uh, coming to ter an understanding of coming to terms with this was the outcome. For me, that is healing to me, is understanding why things happen. Now, that's hard to do, that's
Well,
for me,
we're talking about this before we hit record, aren't we?
yeah,
I think it comes to us. I don't think we can make it happen.
no, and I don't think that we can make it happen. And I think that's why I say it's more of an for me, it's more of an understanding. It's finally understanding the whole situation and the whole picture, you know,
And
to
what's the
fully
emotion that
heal.
comes? What's the emotion that comes with the understanding?
I think the hmm,
Or emotions?
well, peace, um, uh, I mean, obviously letting go, whatever that emotion would be, but I think hmm,
Pe- peace would seem to. If I put peace
yeah,
and letting go is an action, and peace is a state, or it's a feeling.
yeah. I don't know. I'm really trying to
We
like
might be
think about
overcooking it.
this.
I might be overcooking
I
it, Quinn. Yeah.
maybe I'm overthinking it, but
Well,
I'm
both
just
of
trying
us aren't
because
we? So I'm the one asking the question, so I'll take the blame
for
for it.
sure. No, 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 you're fine. You're fine. I think to me, anger is more something easier to kind of understand because for everybody, anger is different. Anger is let out differently. Anger is a different um, expression. Some people, their anger is to do bad things to people. Some anger, sometimes when you get angry, you cry. Sometimes when you get angry, you don't speak to the person,
Yeah.
so on and so forth. So for that, like I think anger is completely different in everybody, and I don't think that there's one way to ever diagnose anger. But
Mm.
healing,
Yeah,
I don't want to say that we all go through the same things of healing, but I think we all go through the same steps of healing. Does that make sense? Like we all, in some way or form, we all either forgive somebody or we look within ourselves to heal, or we try to understand what happened to heal. But
and
maybe
all
I'm
of
not
the above.
correct. Yeah,
And all of
right.
the,
It can be all of that. I'm just saying, I think we all go through that in our own ways. Kind of like anger, but I think anger is more personal to the person, as whereas healing is more, we all go through it. And I think that's why adoptees, we all can kind of, we all feel connected in a certain way because we've all kind of gone through this like weird healing
yeah,
together. Not fully healed, maybe not healed at all, but we're all on that journey to heal.
yeah.
I don't know. I hope that makes sense. I hope.
We can only share. It does. It does. It does to me. Um,
Okay.
I'm just conscious of time. Is there anything else that you'd like to share that I've not asked you about, Quinn?
Ju- Nothing. The only thing I'd like to say is thank you for having me on.
You're welcome.
Um, if any one of your listeners is interested in supporting my feature film being made, um, I have a donation button on my website. If you just go to novacatfilms.com. I don't know how it works in the UK. Can you guys access
Of
US websites? Okay,
Yeah,
I wasn't sure. Okay.
and I'll put a link in the show notes because a lot of people are walking their dogs or ironing or driving,
I mean,
whatever.
yeah, no, no, for sure,
So
for sure.
yeah,
I
no cat
appreciate that. But
We'll
yeah,
be
if you
back
want to
in.
donate and support and see a film about adoption by somebody that's adopted, um, that's the goal. And I hope to help people, and I hope that
Yeah,
it helps.
and they can watch the trailer. And that's the other thing is
Yes,
the
yes, the
trailer.
trailer is on the website as well.
Trailer
You
is
can
on the
watch it. It's
website.
for free. So go over and watch it,
You
and
can get
you can kind of get a sense of what the film will be about and
yeah,
the theme of it.
brilliant, brilliant.
Thank you so much. This was awesome. This was amazing. I
Yeah,
appreciate it so much.
you're very welcome. I loved it too.
Good.
Um, yeah. Where did the name Quinn come from?
Quinn, eh, honestly, so what I've heard, my parents wanted to name me Patrick. Um, I'm not Irish whatsoever, so everybody always thinks because I got red hair and so on and so forth. But they wanted to name me Patrick. Uh, when I was growing up, a lot of kids were being named Patrick, and they were like, "Well,
Yeah,
we don't want there to be another Patrick, so we'll take his middle. My middle name was supposed to be Quinn, so my first name now is Quinn, and my
yeah.
middle name now is Patrick.
Mm.
So that's kind of like the quick and easy version of it.
My birth father's name is Quinn. So
Oh, wow, wow.
hmm, I didn't spot it. I didn't spot it at all. I was just looking down at my notes and it jumped off the page, can't we? Spooky, eh?
There's a connection. There's a connection.
Thanks, Quinn.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks, listeners. We'll speak to you again very soon. Take care. Bye.